does not replace your dog. Your shirt does not replace your pants. White rice with butter and salt does not replace a grilled cheese sandwich, as I mistakenly tried to argue earlier in the year. When we wrote that the first time, it was to make it absolutely clear that we don't mistake one implement in here for the others. They all have a purpose, they all have a place, and when put together, they become the process, they become the program. But one without the others, or mistaking one for the other, has left us with an incomplete process. It wasn't until we addressed the details of how they work independently and then stuffed them all together that we've been able to create what are very provably the heaviest kettlebell and mace lifters in the world on any random Tuesday. Not under bright lights, not people that came in here with the designs on being the heaviest at anything. Librarians in their 40s, school teachers in their 30s that weigh less than 120 pounds. Men that walk in here with any type of deficiency or proficiency that we figure out how to get them to a place that there's no possible way that common sense could have taken them to without squeezing every single little bit of detail out of that process. Just like martial arts. Anyone that's trained martial arts with anyone good knows that they have been spanked 10 ways from Sunday by someone that they never thought possibly could, and then that's the most important lesson they'll ever learn. When I started learning jiu-jitsu, my instructor's hot wife triangle choked me anytime she wanted for about the first year. Something like that, you either leave or you come back. The people that are the strongest anywhere here have just come back. That's it. When a sound enough process is in play, as long as you keep attending to it, it will keep advancing you. I found that to be 100% true. The only untrainability we've ever found is constitutional softness that we cannot rectify with sharp detail and a strong group. If you're too much of a baby to stand up straight when you're sweating and tired, you're just not going to make it in here. Outside of that, we've pretty much figured everything else out. And then that's kind of what we wanted to talk about next. Is when we're accessorizing what we need to accessorize, it isn't necessarily just accessorizing the barbell, it's accessorizing our external application of whatever this training is. Oftentimes the barbell is the heaviest proving ground, so if we can turn a screw that gets the barbell lift heavier, then we've proven capacity that often translates to everything else. It's not rocket science, but it is some level of science. Adaptive non-science, probably. We want to do that in the primary lifts and patterns with non-negotiable positioning. Sensible and strategic, sometimes corresponding, other times contrary lifts, swings, movements, and holds. What that means is sometimes we'll accessorize a hinge with a different hinge. Other times, depending on the load volume strategy of the day, we'll accessorize a hinge with a front-loaded light squat. If we can identify that it wakes up the same stuff and improves it, then it's the right choice. If it doesn't, then it isn't. There's only one way to know that, and it's to practice it. It's to practice it on a lot of bodies for a long time. Many of you have tinkered, many of you have lifted. Once something lands, write it down. If you don't standardize it, you almost certainly will not reapply it. You agree with that? You agree with that? Volume accumulation, in order to not simply require more, must be non-random, positionally accurate, and transferably consistent. Transferably consistent means transferable to what's next or what's next in the process or project or program. If you're training for a fight, transferably consistent is a linear progression away from the volume, the heavy weight, the high intensity to get you ready to do what you're going to do. If you're training for an event, training for a race, whatever the case is, same thing. But there has to be continuity to it, and there can't be any wiggling, wandering, or guessing. When you're training, especially with a specific purpose, staying engaged, moving hard all the time, applying baseline details that prove themselves to work is important, and guessing is your worst enemy. When there's appropriate scaling in place, which in here there always is, Cutting the work short is never an option. This is not a 50-minute AMRAP, whatever other acronym nonsense. Do as many as you possibly can at all costs of form, expensive, safety, everything else. But if the training day is on the board, unless you have an injury, the training day is completed. The way that we do that is making sure that we have a bunch of tools in the toolbox to address anything that might come up. Something comes up, we address it. Someone has trouble lunging, we figure out how to get them to lunge. Someone has a trouble overhead position, we figure it out. Someone's coming back from injury. There are strategies to all that. They're important. And as a room full of people that I'm positive have been banged up, a lot of times we can outrun those bang-ups by out-strategizing them, not simply just trying to outwork them. I can also say that because I've done both, and one has worked far better for me than the other. There's times and places to gut things out, and when you're coming up a little deficient in something or struggling with some injury recovery or something like that, that's not the time to gut it out. That's the time to science it out, detail it out, turn the screws, figure out what's going to work the best for you.